You never expect this from a professor. He's like probably extremely busy and he has to handle other stuff apart. What we still don't know is that we didn't actually get to enter the CS department, which is just sad. But never mind, let's continue the interview.
Yes, life goes on. Hello everyone, this is Himanshu Thakur bringing to you the next episode of the Intern View. Today we bring to you something we've never covered on Intern View before. We've had a lot of industry internships, but we haven't talked about research internships. So today, to bring to you the experience of doing research internships, we have Bhavya. Bhavya, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure, I'm glad to be here. So, my name is Bhavya, as you just heard, and I'm a fourth year student in computer science and engineering at SVNIT, or also NIT Surat. I did an internship, rather got an opportunity to intern under two professors at IIT Bombay in the summer of 2024. And I guess we'll be talking a little about that today.
Yeah. Okay, nice to have you here, Bhavya. Tell me about how did you come across this opportunity? So, unlike research internships, we don't really have this on-campus culture going on where a research internship will come on campus. So, you have to find it yourself. So, talk about that. How did you come across it?
Sure. So basically, I was reading stuff essentially about the topic I was interested in. So my domain is in compilers and programming languages, and what I was like was, okay, I need some experienced people that I need to intern under. And well, the usual thing people go for is, oh well, IITs are a good place to start. And so I was just looking at different websites. I was looking at the profiles of different professors, and I was looking at their personal web pages. The first choice I went to was IIT Bombay, because it's IIT Bombay, and I was looking at the professors who had their research interests in programming languages and compilers. More specifically, compilers, because I didn't think of it as programming language at the time. It's a superset of compilers rather. And there was one professor in particular who had a page, or rather a section on his web page, that described particularly what you have to do as a prerequisite if you want to do research under him. And that was something cool. I mean, what was nice about it was now I had a list of things that I could sort of follow and have a decent chance of, okay, so it would essentially mean I am competent enough to do proper research under this domain, and that he would find me useful if I were to know all of those prerequisites. And I also realized that during all of the stuff that I was doing, so this was during last summer, that was the summer of 2023, and at that time I was kind of reading stuff and trying to create a project of my own, and I realized a lot of what I was doing was already going in that direction of the stuff he had listed. And so I was like, I might as well carry on, and I'll work on something. Since I was interested, I'll work on a project of my own, either finish it or have a partial thing finished, and then I can approach him or maybe some other professors. There'll be a few others in India. For compilers specifically, in India you won't find too many people, but yeah, there'll be a lot of other professors that I could approach. And that's what I thought. Well, I could just continue what I'm doing, and since a few people are going to be looking for interns, particularly in compilers, there's not many people who would be interested, or rather be very self-motivated to pursue such a field. It's considered a little difficult. And yeah, that's pretty much how I came across the opportunity.
Okay, so basically the scene is second year summer holidays 2023 for you. You're dedicating your time to deep diving into compilers, and along the way you find this professor's website. He has some clear guidelines which you then decide to move along on, and you were thinking, even if it's not this professor, this progress is going to help you along anyway in finding any other opportunity as well. Okay, so then you do that preparation, okay, you get your fundamentals sorted, then I'm assuming there is a culture of cold emailing that is very prevalent in finding research internships. So tell me about how this actual selection process was like. Once you have your fundamentals and concepts there, how did you actually go about applying?
Okay, so what I did, so many people, what they usually do, or what I had seen when I was in, that was a few years ago, was that people would send hundreds of emails to professors, different professors, and they'd all be generic, and they'll be like, oh, well, I want to intern under you, I like your work, and yeah, I exist, please, give me an opportunity. And I did not want to do that because, well, first of all, I actually had a lot of stuff I was doing, and I wanted to get that across. I was like, I've done so much, and I've covered a lot of the prerequisites you mentioned. Do you think I'd be a useful candidate? And well, this is connected to what he mentioned on his website as well, the professor. And I'll just list a few things. So the first was, well, you have to have believable motivation. You can't just be interning to use IIT as a stepping stone for your masters, and you can't just be interning because of the IIT tag. There's something wrong if you're doing so. And so you need to convey to them what exactly is your reason for pursuing this, and it has to sound authentic. The second thing was, if I'm not mistaken, the professor required that I do 6 months of research before beginning the intern, and then at least 6 months during the intern. This was because for compilers specifically, it takes a lot of time to get something worthwhile done, and so he needed people to have a solid foundation before they begin. And not only that, but they need to work for a while before they can even get something and contribute usefully, because you can't just have a one-way contribution where they're teaching you stuff but you're not contributing anything else, right? So down that path, the idea is that allow me to think for a second.
You're drafting the email at this point, you're thinking about how to phrase your answer.
Yeah, exactly. Wait, now I'm confused.
Okay. So
Can we edit this out? I guess.
No, it's fine. We'll just roll. So okay, let me see if we're both on the same page, so the audience is as well. So okay, you're thinking of, okay, this professor has all these prerequisites, and if I'm to approach this professor, I better meet those prerequisites. And you listed some of them out. You need, compiler projects need time. So you had to sort out 6 months of dedication to this project. So maybe talk about how that you even managed to do that. I mean, most people will be familiar with 2 months internships. So giving 6 months, how are you managing that?
Okay, so essentially, as the story goes, before last summer, I wanted to apply for GSOC, and I did not get accepted. But what I did as a preparation for GSOC was I kind of looked into LLVM, and that's how I got into compilers, and I looked at the documentation, and I got a little interested. And then during the summer, I was like, well, I don't have anything particular. I don't have an opportunity right now, so I need to spend time doing something. And at that time, I was reading this book called The Dragon Book of Compilers. And in the preface of that book, there was something very interesting. It was that what you learn here will be useful not just in the compilers field itself, but rather everywhere in computer science. So I was like, wait a minute. So even if I am able to, this is, while this is mentioned in this particular book, I guess this applies to a lot of different places where when you study for a while, if you spend a lot of time doing something, it's not like it's gonna benefit you in a very niche manner. It's probably gonna benefit you in a lot of different areas. It's gonna improve your thinking, and ultimately you spend your time doing something worthwhile. And so the idea was, when he said 6 months of prerequisites, it wasn't like I was trying to fulfill a criteria there.
Right.
I was simply exploring something that I was interested in, and that I knew, okay, I need to get to a level before I even approach professors. And in order to do that, I had to do something that was okay. I had to not only build theoretical knowledge that came from books and classical texts, but also I had to have something practical down, and that was having the technicalities, the tools, Linux, build systems, learning all of that, and trying to build something on my own. Also, regarding the prerequisites and the hiring process, which is something I forgot to mention earlier actually, when I hesitated. And yeah, this is something that this professor in particularly did. Whenever someone approached him about, doing research under him or something, what he would do is he'd gauge your motivation and your skills and everything by giving you some projects, some tasks over email, and then he'd be like, do this, and when you're done with it, let me know. I'll evaluate it, and if you're doing this consistently and if you have enough motivation to get through them even, then then there's a good chance you can join our team. So he gauged people's motivation using a very objective technique. It wasn't like through just a single email he's judging, oh well, so and so, especially through generic emails. What happened in my case though was that before I even approached him, I already had done something. I already had a partial project in. To be more specific, I built a very basic compiler front end, which was very simple. It wasn't rocket science. It wasn't anything very complicated. It was very simple, but even getting that simple thing done took an entire summer. It took a long time, and he, having so much experience, he knew how much effort it takes to build even this. And so for me personally, he didn't really give me any tasks. He was very kind, and he was like, okay, well, this is good. I feel like you've done some stuff here, and they called me for an offline meeting directly. By they, I mean, so there were actually two professors. There's actually two professors at IIT Bombay who work majorly in the fields of programming languages and compilers. I'd emailed one of them, and he copied the mail to the other, and I ended up getting to meet both of them offline little after somewhere in the middle of the next semester. So that was after September, let's say September of 2023, I'll say. And when I went there offline, they said this specifically. So one professor was like, well, we were impressed by the stuff you've done before you came here, and I realized that they really value they really value it when people try something and put a lot of effort in before even approaching them. Because usually it's the case where you're just sort of approaching them and you're like, well, I don't know anything, but I want to intern under you.
Yeah.
And that's kind of a turn off, because, well, they have to teach you a lot. First of all, they have to give you all of these tasks. They have to monitor you continuously to see if you're working properly, and they have to do all of that. But if you make them realize, or if you're able to convince them in some sense that you're self-motivated, then what happens is they have a little more trust in you, in the sense that if they just leave you sort of if they suppose give a vague outline of what you have to do and not necessarily something very specific, they won't be like, oh right, your code is supposed to have so and so output. They'll obviously do that most of the times. They'll put very concrete definitions on what they want, but many times it happens the criterias are a little vague, and the way to achieve a certain task is a little vague. And what will happen is, if they have some trust in you, that you're self-motivated, they'll know that even if you're taking a lot of time, you're probably gonna find a way through, and you're gonna have a lot of valid musings about the topic, and you're gonna come up with something useful, and then you can discuss about it later, and then we can improve on it. And that trust is very valuable, and I like that, because and they don't have that if you just approach them without anything in hand. So yeah, with regard to the hiring process, it was mostly like I did a lot of stuff. I tried to explore as much as I could, tried to reach a level where I thought I was entitled to even email them, and then they called me offline for a meeting just to discuss what their research topics were. And after that, we just decided, okay, next summer I'm gonna be coming here for an actual internship. But not only that, I'm also going to extend that summer's internship to the 6 month intern that we have in our 8th semester, because as I said, he requires it. We for a valid reason that we do at least 6 months. We need at least 6 months to get something concrete done. And so in the 8th semester, I'm going to be going back there again and continuing the same project I was working on.
Okay, we had a little bit of a technical issue come up. You might have noticed lighting is pretty dark now. But to bring you quality content, we're back again. So, continuing where we left off, we had concluded with remarking that you had sent an authentic mail, okay, your authenticity shone through, and you had a favorable response from the professors. Now, the internship is basically confirmed. You have a 2 months internship lined up. Tell me how it was like. Was it online, offline? Did you get to see IIT Bombay campus? I mean, lots of people would be interested to know how the campus is like, how IIT Bombay campus looks like. So,
Okay, so the internship was offline, and the thing is, for me, logistics weren't an issue because I lived in Mumbai. And if you approach someone from using a cold email or something, it's probably the case that you're gonna have to manage the logistics yourself, where you stay and eat and stuff. But yeah, for me that was kind of clear, and the professors were very kind in that they were like, you know what, we'll get you a table, we'll get you a desk at the lab. You can work there as you want. We can allot that desk to you. You can work there as long as you want, and you can come anytime you want. And just they encourage that I be there offline, be present over there, so that they can set up spontaneous meetings, because sometimes the timings don't match, and some PhD students have some work or the professor has some work, and we might have to shift stuff around. So it's really good if everyone's present offline. You can just call a meeting whenever. In fact, they actually even have separate meeting rooms. If let's say it's not a professor you're meeting, but let's say a bunch of students want to meet, and they don't want to disturb the rest of the lab.
yeah.
And if that's the case, then there's separate meeting rooms that you can book in order to discuss stuff. And this sort of flows into a very student-centric atmosphere that they have here. There's this stuff. Along with that, they have okay. So if I were to talk about the lab itself, the lab was really nice. They had a huge balcony where you could, get some sunlight for a while and come back in. There were really comfortable chairs. They had meetings specifically to discuss any grievances that we have. For example, what can we do to make the atmosphere more conducive? Is the AC too cold? Or do you need a coffee machine?
Yeah.
Well, some people are like, yeah, we need a coffee machine. And so professor's like, yeah, there's no problem. As long as you maintain it, we don't have a problem. We'll do that. Anything that makes it a better experience for you to spend time in this lab and spend time around these people, because you learn a lot through osmosis. You learn a lot, and you become a lot more consistent and are able to do a lot of focused work if you're present at the lab every day consistently. In fact, what goes more into this entire student-centric theme is that you could work the entire night at the lab and sleep there if you wanted to.
Yeah.
They have a sofa and they had blankets. You can go and sleep. And the lab was open 24/7. It was a biometric system, so I didn't get to access whenever I wanted, unfortunately. But yeah, if you were a student at IIT Bombay, then you'd essentially get access whenever you wanted. And a lot of times during a busy semester, you would just find people sleeping there. So no matter what time you go around the clock, there'd be someone present in the lab. Furthermore, so about the campus, or rather, if I were to continue this theme of the lab, I really loved being in the company of the people there. Because you get to meet people who not only first of all, they have a similar interest to you, and so they're interested in what you say. You're interested in what they say. Obviously they're really, really smart, and they know a lot more than you, and so you can learn a lot from them. And those discussions can stretch hours. We randomly sometimes go for a tea, or we go for lunch together, and we can discuss about things. And we're both not only understanding what the other says, but we're interested in them, and we try to incorporate that in our work. The exchange of ideas makes it easier for me to makes it easier to keep my mind more open to different ideas, and I can apply that in my projects as well. Furthermore, okay, now if I were to talk about the campus a little bit, well, it was like any other IIT or NIT, where there's a lot of greenery, definitely a lot of places to eat, which was something specific, I think, to IIT Bombay. There's like a lot of places to eat.
Yeah.
There are outside restaurants, AC restaurants, there's cafes, multiple cafes. Departments have their own cafes. Like the civil and electrical departments had their own cafes on the terrace.
Wow.
And they were all proper cafes, you polished, and you could order and sit and eat, and that was really nice. But apart from that, I honestly didn't explore the campus too much because I was mostly in the lab, and I was kind of working on two projects simultaneously, so I spent a lot of time there. One more thing I wanted to mention was they gave me opportunities to sit in a lot of expert talks, in a lot of BTech presentations, MTech presentations, where not only that, even the PhD defense. One of the PhD students was defending their thesis, and I got to sit there and listen to the entire thing. Looked at a lot of cool professors over there, and well, they were asking questions, and I was trying to understand what was going on. And when you sit through all of this, you get a lot of knowledge about stuff that's in the field that you're not necessarily pursuing, but you get an idea of it, and then you have a lay of the land of, okay, this stuff exists. And then if somebody else has a conversation about that, you already know, oh wait, I learned about this during so and so presentation I sat in. In fact, after one of these, one PhD defense, I got an opportunity to sit in a discussion with one really cool professor who's from IIT Madras, if I'm not mistaken. And well, all we did was it was a very informal discussion about where all the PhD students, MTech students, and the interns sort of were talking about what they were doing, what they were about to do, what they were planning to do. And then it just be where everyone would pitch in their ideas, and they'd deviate and talk about other stuff, and it was really nice. I got exposure to some very, very cool people, and I couldn't have gotten to meet them if it weren't for my professors and the atmosphere there. Yeah, so that's mostly about my experience in general. It was very positive.
As you can see, we ran into some difficulties again, or it might be better to say some difficulties ran into us. You can see our background has changed, but we're still here bringing you top tier content. So hence, we've changed our location. In fact, we're standing near the CSE department itself. We being from CS, we thought it'd be appropriate to face technical challenges where we debug and solve. So, awkward transition over. Let's get back to the actual interview. So, could you hold this for me a bit?
Sure. Okay. What you still don't know is that we didn't actually get to enter the CS department, which is just sad, but never mind, let's continue the interview.
Yes, life goes on whether you compile or not. all right. So continuing the interview, you just described how life at the campus was like, IIT Bombay, surroundings and so on. Now in this very student friendly and conducive environment, what kind of projects did you engage in, if you could talk about that, or what were the different tech stacks you worked with?
Okay, so I worked primarily on actually two projects. What happened was because I was going to be there for a long time, particularly for the 2-month intern plus the 6-month intern later in the 8th semester, the professors gave me an opportunity to explore two threads of research and then go with whatever I like better, which was really nice of them actually. And so, okay, I'll start talking about the projects themselves. The first one was regarding intermediate representations in compilers. So what happens is compilers first convert code to some intermediate representation, like a 3 address code, which then gets optimized and then later gets converted to machine code. and one of the jobs an intermediate representation has to do is encode certain properties about a program, such as if you have a use of a variable, where are the definitions of the corresponding definitions of the variable. You encode all of this using data structures or in annotations that are within the code itself, or rather the representation itself. And the way these things are represented, or rather what is represented or what's encoded or how the encoding is done, hugely if affects the how easy it is or how difficult it is to optimize the code later, because optimizations themselves require to infer certain properties about the programs, and so those properties have to be explicated well by the intermediate representations, or IRs as we call it. The project was primarily on an improved intermediate representation for compilers that was going to be, or that's meant to be applicable not just for one language, but for basically any compiler pipeline you can think of that uses such intermediate representations. And yeah, so it was kind of a huge project, and it was a rather long-term project. The second one was regarding Java. Java. So Java has a preview feature called value types, where a preview feature means it's not enabled by default for users. You need to do it by passing some flags. Actually, I'm not even sure if it's available as a preview feature in the current JDK versions. You might have to build one from source, or install some other build from the IBM's website. This feature, what it did was it enabled certain optimizations that weren't possible before.
Right.
And but doing these optimizations and then benchmarking them, doing them was a separate part in itself, but benchmarking them was a different problem, because the feature wasn't actually being used in any code bases so far. And so that was something that I was working on how to sort of rather traverse through these technical difficulties. And yeah, pretty much. But before doing that, I had to first understand the optimization itself and the feature itself. So I spent a lot of time doing that too.
I see. So, very technically involved projects, not something, you would easily find any online help with, as people get accustomed to, going through their YouTube tutorials and such, that habit of grasping things from source itself, reading research papers and stuff. It's a very different paradigm, and obviously that would mean quite challenging as well. So I hope someone watching interested in the same things now knows that they have someone they can discuss these things with. So there you go. But traversing all these technical domains, which were very new to you, I assume, how involved were your mentors and your professors as you did this research?
So before I go ahead with the answer, I forgot to mention what you asked about tech stacks.
Oh yeah.
I think I'd like to say this one thing, where a lot of research, or rather a big chunk of research, is just sitting at a desk and reading stuff and just trying to get it through to your head. I spent a lot of time just reading a bunch of papers, a bunch of textbooks, and some thesis here and there, some articles that the professor recommended me. A lot of time was spent just reading, trying to understand and have a solid foundation, both a mathematical and a theoretical one, so that I could base all of the information that was coming to me in form of these projects and the tasks I had to do on something concrete. And I wasn't fiddling with the basic stuff while I was trying to do something complicated. And while a lot of it was learning, I'll say there were a few other technical skills that were involved. For example, let's say a familiarity with stuff like build systems, right, like CMake, build system generators like CMake, or build systems like Make. Then other than that, general programming language familiarity with Java and C++. This something really cool I'd like to mention is I didn't have any experience with Java before this internship. But when I did start learning about the second project, I did not start learning about Java. I started learning about Java bytecode. So I could read Java bytecode before I could read Java, and that was really cool.
Wow.
But yeah, even learning about that, though contrary to intuition, it was actually kind of beneficial to a lot of my knowledge about Java. For example, stuff like what happens when you initialize a class or an object. I kind of had an inkling about the internals a little bit more, which was nice. But okay, furthermore, there was stuff like so I had to use LLVM, a few tools from that LLVM provides in order to test a certain optimization that so LLVM provides this optimization called global value numbering, and I wanted to see its effect on certain code examples I gave. And for that, LLVM provides another tool called opt, which can be run, and you can pass files, you can pass these files in and mention optimizations, and then you convert those to control flow graphs, and you can just observe those. So LLVM was important for this stuff. I didn't get to explore it too much in depth, but it's a significant part of a lot of the compiler stuff that happens. That and yeah, that's pretty much a lot of the technical stuff that I came across. Now I'd like to focus on how involved were the professors. They were very, very heavily and very intimately involved with everything. I'll start with an example, or rather an anecdote.
Yeah.
I think it was so I was given this one task, except I wasn't sure whether I wasn't sure why I was doing things the way I was doing them, because I wasn't sure how they aligned with the goals my professor had in the ultimate research thread. I wasn't sure how they both aligned. And so I think around 10 p.m. at night or something, I sent him an email regarding, I think I don't understand this exactly. Could you please help me, get a grasp on this? Well, first of all, he replied to me like in 10 minutes or something. And not only that, he was like, you know what, let's discuss this right now until you get it right, until you were able to understand it.
Wow.
And we had a long email conversation where I was like, sorry, where I would ask questions and he'd be like, oh no, you're actually making a wrong assumption here. We need to do it like this. And I'd be like, oh, is it like this? Then he'd correct me again and be like, oh, and then we like, oh yeah, you've got it now. This is what we're supposed to do. We had a long conversation, and you never expect this from a professor. He's like probably extremely busy and he has to handle other stuff apart from the admin related work or the professor related work that he has to do. He has his family and everything. He's still there having such a long conversation with me. Even during the second project, it was like I just reached certain checkpoints and I'd be like, oh professor, could we set up a meeting? I'd like to talk about so and so. And he'd be like, yeah, sure. I mean, he just set up a meeting in the next free slot available. He'd be like, oh yeah, is 11:30 a.m. fine? I'm like, yeah, sure. And that was that. And sometimes he'd be like, oh, we can also chat over coffee if you want one time. And those meetings were also not particularly very formal, where I'm supposed to give a presentation or
PowerPoint.
Exactly. He was like, if you're stuck somewhere, we could just discuss it out, and you can still come to me, and we can give your musings about the topic, and then we could figure something out together. And so they were very involved in it. It wasn't like this separation where they were handing me a few tasks or handing me some random side project that they didn't care much about. That wasn't the case. I was getting to explore. I was getting to make my own decisions because they put enough trust. They were kind enough to put enough trust in me, where they were like, you can go ahead with these different ideas you have. You can explore them a little. Yes, obviously I'll set a few ground rules so that you don't wander off too much into the abyss. But you can go ahead with these ideas and restrain yourself here, and you can set free over here. And that was really nice.
I see. That's wonderful. I bet there are many people who just they crave that kind of mentorship, that kind of environment that lets them explore, and then people who care, who genuinely care and are available, and obviously have lots of expertise. So I guess one more thing people are curious about, since obvious parallels are made to how industry works or how industry internships are. You already mentioned it was you could be in the campus whenever you wanted. 24 hours it was open. But if you could just talk about how working hours, quote unquote, used to go. People are familiar with the 9 to 5, 9 to 6, 5 days a week kind of schedule. How was it like for you there?
Yeah, so essentially they wanted me to be there mainly for the meetings. It's very convenient to have meetings when you're offline, when you're present over there, rather than having you jump on a Google Meet where you can't interact, you can't. So whenever we had meetings, it was usually the case where the professor had a whiteboard in his office, and if you had to discuss something, you just get up and draw some stuff, and he'd draw some stuff. And if someone was on a Google meeting, they couldn't see the board and they couldn't see what you were discussing. So it's much more convenient offline. So they basically wanted me to be present for those.
Yeah.
And that's why they encouraged being there offline. But other than that, I didn't have any restrictions as such. I could come and go according to the times I wanted. Obviously, as an intern, you'd probably choose to be there for a long time.
Yeah.
Because when you're around a lot of smart people, first of all, there's some influence they have on you. Osmosis, a little osmosis there. You'd see a lot of people staying there till late working on their projects, and you'd be like, you know what, I don't have anything else to do, so might as well just keep working a little more. And the environment's really good. It's all air conditioned. There's a balcony, and there's a lot of good people there. So ultimately, the environment is very conducive to you wanting to be there for a long time. So, well, that's there, but at the same time, you're not restricted.
I see. So, the general philosophy really seems to carry over. Just let the students do what they want. Give them the power, and then just let them roll with it. Yeah, that's wonderful. Okay, I think we've touched on a lot of what people are really curious about. As we conclude, I would like to ask you this one final question. There'll be people watching this first year, second year, maybe just JE ended, and they don't know which side they're going to go to, research, industry, or some third side too. They'll be looking at you, at your journey, and probably come into college and see the people around them. And most of them will probably be engaged in DSA, competitive programming and stuff. And if they have an inkling inside them telling them to do research, there'll be a ball of anxiety and they'll feel uncertain. So, to that student watching here, what would you like to say to them?
Okay, so first of all, it'll be good to make an objective analysis of why you want to do a master's, or why you want to do research, or why you want to be working in a job, for example. Trying to concretize your motivations, exactly. Because without that, it's just a vague feeling where you don't know if it's peer pressure that's making you do this stuff. You don't know if it's your inclination. You don't know any of that. For example, there's something I read on one of my professor's blogs a while back, which was really interesting. A long time ago, masters and PhD weren't programs. They were simply these cases where you as a student wanted to explore stuff, and you would look for people in the field who were treasures of knowledge, and then you just approach them and be like, oh, can I please work at your lab and stuff? I'd like to learn from you about so and so. And then they'd accept them and then be like, yeah, sure, work with us as an apprentice. And that would be what a quote unquote master's or PhD would be like back then. They weren't programs. And so what you want to look for in you is simply that. Do you have this inclination of making hypotheses and testing them out and putting this knowledge out there for the world, these different inventions or whatever? You want to discover something, you want to make a dent in the existing knowledge available. If you have an inclination for that, then you go for the next step, where you try to concretize exactly what's stopping you from going 100% in that direction. A lot of it for me was actually just the social implications and the peer pressure, where research wasn't exactly the most popular opinion in my college. People usually just went for jobs. And so, and when you have this path that so many people are following, it's also a path where a lot of people are failing along with you, and so you feel less like you're a failure in yourself, as in if you fail, there's a lot of people that are failing with you, and there's also a lot of people succeeding, but there's also a lot of people providing information about how you should go about doing stuff, and advice about what's the right thing, what's the wrong thing, and whatnot. Whereas when you're sort of quote unquote alone, and you're walking on this different path where you don't have any seniors to ask stuff to, and you haven't done this before, obviously, and it's not the most popular thing, then you have this self-doubt that festers inside of you. And so I'd say just banish all of that, all of those social implications by convincing yourself through logic. As in, look, ultimately what matters is what I like, and I have justified for myself so and so reasons for why I want to do research. And now it's all about having faith in yourself, where you're like, I have these opinions of what one should do or what I should do, and I'm going to stick with those opinions regardless of what you think. You might think it's better for me to go for a job, or it's better in general, or whatever, but I have these things that these benchmarks I've set for myself, these goals I've set for myself, and they're worthy goals in my opinion, and that's all that should matter. And when it's often difficult to even believe that, because we tend to be afraid of failure, because we're like, oh wait, fine, I'll go through 100% with this one path, but then what if I fail? Then I'll just be left with nothing to do and no one to ask to, and that's okay. I guess you just have to convince yourself that failing is okay. If you fail, then might as well just fail big, right? Because the alternative is that you do succeed, and when you do, you succeed at something you really wanted to succeed at, and that's something worth risking failure for, and so why not pursue it? So it's having a little faith in your opinions, that plays a big role. Furthermore, something that has helped me throughout trying to look for internships and stuff, in times where I felt very doubtful or dubious about whether I was going to be able to achieve something. I thought, well, look, if there's no one I can follow and if there's no one I can ask, then perhaps I should man up and be the person that other people can ask.
Yeah.
Right? So I sort of took it as a challenge, where I was like, fine, if there is no one with this experience, and then I'm gonna have faith in what I'm thinking right now, and I'm gonna figure out my own way of doing things. There might be mistakes in whatever that way is, and I'll learn from it, and that's fine. I'll write about it. I'll tell people whenever they ask me, but I'm gonna learn from those mistakes, and I'm gonna make my own mistakes, and those mistakes are gonna be authentic to me, and that's completely fine. In fact, that's really good. Would you rather fail because somebody else made the wrong choice and convinced you to follow that path? No, right? You'd rather fail because, at least for me, it's better that I fail because it was my choice of taking that path.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess that covers a lot of it. There's obviously nuances, and a lot of those nuances, the answers to those, you can sort of talk to yourself, I guess. For me, it was all about journaling a lot, thinking about what I really want, why some things are bothering me. I felt like that helped a lot in trying to clear the fog around this stuff.
Yeah. Wow. There's a lot in that I think transcends past getting an internship or research. Just having the fortitude and the will to make your convictions, to have them not match with the people around you, and then to stick to it and see it through to the end. I think that is what this whole thing is really about. If we can walk away with that, that's life, really. It's been a wonderful experience having you over here. And to the viewers, I hope you've had a wonderful time as well. We hadn't covered research internships before over at InternView, so I hope this has been a new and enlightening experience to you. I hope you walk away with some smoldering flame, some kindling flame that gets you to explore this honestly less explored dimension in India when it comes to universities. So, with that, we'll see you next time on the Intern View. Thank you for watching.
Oh, wait, I'd like to add one more thing.
Oh, sure.
If you're interested in compilers or programming languages, you can find my blog in the description. I try to write about topics that I don't find a lot of resources for, so you might like it.
And now we are officially out. Peace.